Hey everyone, so welcome. I know I haven't actually done a post or anything about this, but I just wanted to jump in and I wanted to address this because this is absolutely huge. Because people are always talking about, you want to look good, you want to feel good, and of course we all do. We're all, we're women, like everyone wants to look great. But the thing is, you don't always have to be resorting to the plastic surgeries and having facials all the time and using really expensive creams. It's the foundation, and the fundamentals, Leanne, hey, how are you? That are really, really key here. So what I'm actually talking about is, can you guess what it might be, Leanne, or anyone watching? And always just let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you're catching the replay, do the hashtag replay. But any guesses as to what this might be? This one massive consideration in terms of being able to look better and feel better and have more clarity and have more energy each and every day. Do you know what it is? And you might be kind of, hi, hi. I'm actually talking about sleep. Sleep is one of those things, and of course it's common sense. We know that you want to be eating right, you want to be having water, you want to be exercising, but sleep is one of those things. And I can absolutely attest to this. And I know a lot of mothers can attest to this. And, people that work night shifts and things like that, particularly rotating night shifts, can be really disruptive to sleep. But what I'm talking about is, when it comes to sleep, anyone, as I said, that's had a challenge like myself, or as those categories that I touched on just then, is, when you're not sleeping right, it affects every area of your life. It will affect your energy. It will affect your clarity, your motivation, your emotional kind of ability to navigate some of these emotions as they come up. It affects every area. And I know for myself, when my sleep was really bad, I didn't want to look people in the eye. I mean, I was so antisocial. It was like there was a big part of me that was like, no, I just need to rest. And I was so super self-conscious. And it's one of those things, as I said, so many of us go through challenges with sleep, and I'm seeing it younger and younger. So not only, of course, babies can have challenges, but I'm talking about, kids that are like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and teenagers. And the problem is, there's things that we're doing without even realizing that are really affecting our sleep. So I just want to go through some of the key things that you need to consider, as well as some really good tips that you can implement today to help promote that deep, rejuvenative, healing, restful sleep that we're all seeking. So I'm sure you guys know, but I actually published a book. And it's 137 tips for reclaiming deep, restorative sleep each and every night. I actually compiled this from a lot of my own research, as I said, particularly when my sleep was really bad. And I must admit, touch wood, it's been pretty good overall since I've been in Tassie. And it's to the extent that now when I have a bad night, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I lived like this for so long. Because now, as I said, fortunately, it is quite, infrequent. But as I said, it is so common for so many people from all walks of life, all ages, both sexes, to be struggling with this. And you don't need to. There's things that you can be doing. So the first thing, as I said, there's the book. You can buy it online if you need to, or reach out and I can, send you a copy by all means. But one of the first things you need to be mindful of is what you do in the day matters. So what I mean by that is, if you are running around like a headless chook, if you are stressed, if you are not eating, you're skipping meals, if you are, exercising too late, all of those things will be affecting your sleep. And same with that window leading up to sleep. So I'm talking about, maybe 3-4 hours leading up to sleep. What are you doing? Once again, if you're exercising, you're going to be raising your stress hormone, and that will affect your ability to fall asleep. Also, what about the, your lights overhead? So, like for instance, the lights here, I don't want to have these on too late, because that will affect my ability to start, unwinding, to start producing melatonin, the sleep hormone. So, you want to be thinking about all of that. And also, it's one of the first tips in the book, it's caffeine. I want you to start thinking about how much caffeine you're actually having a day. Like, I want you to actually be really serious and really honest, because, I constantly see people. I even saw someone the other day that was having 5 or 6 a day. And that's what I said, is it habit? She said, yes. And for a lot of people it is. It's just something they're so used to popping on the kettle. And it's like, well, why don't you just have a herb tea instead? Or even just have hot water if you actually feel like you want something that's kind of warmer. But, it's like caffeine does come in different forms. It's not just coffee. Like, one coffee might be, say, 100, milligrams potentially of caffeine, but black tea can still have 65 milligrams. Green tea can have 35 milligrams. Matcha tea's got more. Also, energy drinks, Coca-Cola, chocolate, some supplements. I mean, I've seen supplements with up to 110 milligrams of caffeine per serve. So, it's something that, as I said, you want to be really mindful of how much caffeine are you actually having per day. If you're having 2 coffees, that's pretty much pushing you over the limit in terms of 210 milligrams of caffeine per day is being. So we need to be conscious, and some people will say that they can actually start to feel their heart racing or they feel jittery. So that's why I wouldn't encourage having a coffee first thing on an empty stomach. I would actually say it's better to have it, like, say, after breakfast. Like, I often have, breakfast and all of that, and then I'll go and sit and I'll have and really enjoy the coffee like a cappuccino. But, it's like people, as I said, are having coffees after dinner, or they're having black tea after dinner. And caffeine has approximately a 6-hour half-life, meaning it will take 6 hours before it's left your system. So in some people, they've actually shown, because not everyone metabolizes things in the same way, some people are slow metabolizers of caffeine, and, they could be in their system for still 17 hours later, still raising your stress hormones. So, I do encourage people to have caffeine earlier in the day, but especially be conscious of what you're doing, as we said, in the day, but yes, leading up to sleep as well. Also, sometimes people will be scrolling on their phones when they're in bed, or they're looking at their tablet, or, whatever it might be. But of course, that blue light that's being emitted, Maz, hi, how are you? Nilva, hi, is actually, disrupting your ability for your body to be producing melatonin sleep hormone. So, that's why I say to people, I don't know if you've got them, people already have them, but I encourage you to buy some blue blocker glasses. And if you're going to be on the screen at night, even when you're watching TV, I would encourage you to wear them. Honestly, like, these ones probably cost me about $70. Like, they were on special, this Widoc. And it's funny, I'm actually doing this course tonight and tomorrow night, and it's based in the UK. So of course I'm zooming in, and with Zoom, it's like works out. It's like 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. for 2 nights in a row. Not ideal, I know. But, if I do want to have any ability to have sleep, I'll be wearing this, of course. So I would encourage you to invest in something like that. And of course, making sure that, in terms of sleep hygiene, your room is as dark as possible. Some people have really light blinds. That's not great. Or, they can see light that's creeping through, parts of the blind or whatever. Like, honestly, if you can invest in blockout blinds, it's one of the best things that you can do. Also, the temperature in your room is really important. They say 18 to 20 degrees is really optimal for sleep quality. So of course, it depends where you're living around the world in terms of what your climate's like. But, really important. And that also takes into account, well, what sleepwear, because some people will be having like winter pajamas most of the year. That's not ideal, especially when it starts to get warmer. And then, of course, people can have sheets, and they might have blankets, and they might have, like thick doonas. Like, we've got a very thick doona and a blanket, and something else which I'll touch on in a moment. But all of these things, as it warms up, you might feel cool initially when you get into bed, but as your body kind of, gets used to it, it might be too warm, and that might be waking you up. Like, it's amazing. I'm talking, yes, of course, as we get older, and especially us women, we go through perimenopause and menopause, that can sort of affect our sleep because of the body temperature adjustments as estrogen's dropping and things like that. But there's women that I talk to that are like late teens and early 20s that aren't in that period, of course, but they're still waking up during the night too hot. And, that's what you've got to really question. What am I wearing to bed? And I'm like, if I got too much, blankets and quilts and things on. So they're really just, as I said, seems simple, but it will make a big difference. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, and as I said, one of the things I just touched on just then, or was going to touch on, was the weighted blanket. So that's something else that Richard and I have on the bed. And it's about, I'm going to say 10 kilos. And it was funny, when we first had it, we both really like it. And a lot of people will say that. And I mean, it's great for anxiety. It's great for sleep. And it's very sort of comforting. It's almost like, because you feel it's, these weighted blankets, you're aware of it on you, like, because it's got sort of, these weights, I suppose, that are actually sewn into it. So, you can't see them, of course, at all, but it is heavy. Like, I mean, if I'm making the bed and I'm pulling it up, it's like, I can really feel that 10, 11 kilos, it's really quite heavy. But when it's on you, it can be really quite comforting. But as I said, take that into account when you're thinking about how many layers you've got on, because that could be raising your body temperature too high, or the room temperature too high, and consequently your body temperature. So something else to be mindful of. The third thing, so we've sort of looked at what you do in the day matters, what you do in those few hours leading up to sleep matters. We've looked at some of the sleep hygiene considerations, like making sure it's really dark and, the temperature and things like that. The third thing is the micronutrient status. So what I mean by that is, things like magnesium. If you're magnesium deficient, that can make you feel more anxious, and it can also affect your sleep quality. So, magnesium is one of those key minerals that we think of for stress and anxiety for that reason. And you can have that checked via blood. It's not always necessarily an accurate kind of reflection, especially just the ones that you'll get from a standard pathology from your doctor, but it's an indication, it's a guide, because a lot of people are quite low. Same with iron, that can affect sleep quality. So can zinc, so can B6. So, there's lots of different micronutrients that can be affecting your sleep quality. And then, of course, macronutrients. So what that is, of course, the protein, the carbs, the fats. So, are you having good quality protein during the day to make sure your blood sugar is more stable? Because people that are having much higher carb diets, what that can do is, as your blood sugar drops, it's like your stress hormones like cortisol elevate, and then of course that will affect your sleep quality. So some people will be waking up in the night for that reason. And that's why sometimes people might need a little bit of a snack before they go to bed that includes some sort of, protein, just to keep the blood sugar stable. So, sometimes you might need to play around with that to see if maybe that's one of the reasons why you're waking up. The next thing is hormones. Of course, we touched on stress hormones like cortisol, and I encourage you to go back to my training that I did the other day about what's really driving your stress, because there are so many factors when it comes to stress and cortisol and adrenaline and all of that. It's not just, what are you worrying about? So much more goes into what's driving your stress. But yes, the cortisol, definitely, I would encourage you to have that checked. Also, estrogen and progesterone. If your estrogen's low, that can be affecting your sleep. If your progesterone's low, that can be affecting your sleep. And, where it's good is if you get like a full cycle profiles, this is usually done by saliva. And what it will be is over the course of the month, it might be, say, 8 different samples or something that you're taking. And it's just, as I said, you'll just express the saliva into the little tubes, pop it in the freezer, send it off at the end of the month. It's through a functional lab. It's usually not through a standard doctor by any means. But, you can actually see what's happening to estrogen and progesterone and, even testosterone and DHEA throughout the course of the month. Because what you might find is there's periods where the hormones are fine, but there's periods where they drop and dip. So often people will find that, of course, just before the period starts, before day one, progesterone drops. That's when people can feel their sleep's worse. I know I've definitely noticed that. And that's when they feel more anxious. So, there's things you can do to raise progesterone, things like vitamin C over 750 milligrams, having B6, that could be 50 milligrams a day. And of course, you need to discuss this with your healthcare practitioner to see if it's right for you. But there is things you can do, Vitex, chase tree, that can be a herb that's been shown to be indirectly progestogenic. And it's one, though, that you do need to be careful, because I see a lot of people saying, just take Vitex, and you can get it in so many different quantities and qualities out there. And I know myself a few years back, I was just taking the Thompson's one, which I quite like Thompson's because it's through Integria or it's through MediHerb. But the thing is, so it's good, good quality and all of that, but it was such a high dose. And this is just one off the shelf. This wasn't even a practitioner one. Anyway, I took that for a little while and then I went off it. Anyway, when I did my full hormone profile, and as I said, I'd been off it for a few months by this point, my progesterone was still 25 times the normal level of someone my age, So it wasn't great. And I thought, okay, so of course then I had this major progesterone dominance. And then even though my estrogen might have been okay, it was still so low relative to the progesterone. So, it's a really important consideration that, as I said, you're looking at your estrogen, your progesterone, your cortisol, all of that. And even for men, like these various hormones can be affecting men's sleep quality as well, like the cortisol, like the testosterone. And sometimes, more and more men are showing high estrogen levels because of these, plastics and endocrine disruptors that are in our environment, in the food supply and things like that. So the other thing you really need to be cautious and be mindful of and really start paying attention to is your gut health. Because of course you could be eating a great diet, but are you actually absorbing it? Like, you actually absorbing your minerals? Are you actually absorbing, what you're intaking? Because a lot of people aren't. And the thing is, you've got to be mindful of the fact that, say, serotonin. So we think about serotonin as a bit of a feel-good hormone or neurotransmitter. And the thing with that is it's a precursor to melatonin. And so melatonin, remember, that's a sleep hormone. So if 90% of the serotonin is produced in your gut and it's a precursor to sleep, it makes sense you've got to be addressing the gut health in order to improve your sleep quality. And I know with myself, I went and had a colonic and my sleep stopped altogether. I kid you not, I didn't sleep for weeks. So it showed me, there is definitely a link there between, what you're doing with the gut sleep. So, if there's an issue, I encourage you to work on it, because there is so much you can do, even in terms of functional labs. I love doing something like the GI map, the complete microbiome map. What that does is it looks at, how are some of these markers and your enzymes and, secretory IgA and other markers that can indicate leaky gut and things like that. Also, it will look at, is there parasites? Is there an overgrowth of candida? Do you have much of the good bacteria? All that sort of stuff. So that's a great lab. Another one is something like the food sensitivities, because, if you're ingesting foods day in, day out that are inflaming your gut, irritating you, that's not going to be helping your sleep qualities or your nervous system or your whole body overall. So, they're two great tests that I encourage you to potentially consider. They're not cheap, but they can potentially highlight an issue, because as we know, as Hippocrates said way back when, all disease begins in the gut. So, you need to be making sure that that's functioning optimally. I mean, so many people will say that their autoimmune condition was reversed and went into remission when they healed their gut. And a lot of people will say that their skin, whatever it might be, once they worked in the gut and healed the gut, so many of the symptoms improved out of sight or went away. So as I said, when it comes to sleep, definitely think about that. Also, for some people, and I do have this in the book too, 5-HTP, I find that can help. For some, it can give you a little bit more energy, and so it might be better to use tryptophan. But with tryptophan, they say you need to have enough B6, otherwise it can be inflammatory for some people. But, so that's where, as I said, I always encourage you to working with a practitioner to work out, what's the right one for you. But I find that if I take, and I don't do it every single night, but because that has been a challenge for me, I often do take a low dose melatonin that has 5-HTP in it and some magnesium and things like that. And that really does help me. Melatonin is not going to help you, though, if that's not the issue, because for some people it's not a melatonin issue. It might be a low progesterone issue, or it might be, parasite issue, or a low iron, low magnesium, all of that sort of issue, or unstable blood sugar. As I said, it depends on what's causing your sleep issues. And usually it is so multifaceted. That's why I'm all about holistic health and wellness, because there's so many factors that are contributing and driving it. So even things like parasites, I know because I had blastocystis for years, it's still not, still hasn't gone away. It's still majorly out of balance. But, parasites can be causing you to be awake at night, because that's when they're more active. And, signs that there could be parasites present are things like, grinding at night. And people will often say that they don't sleep around the full moon. And, they're increasingly active around the full moon, some of these parasites. So once again, that's where, particularly if you notice there is some gut issues, I would consider something like a complete microbiome mapping to see if there is some parasites or an overgrowth of something present. So that's all of that. So, okay, so there's so many considerations, as we said. We've got to be looking at what we're doing in the day and, what we're doing leading up to sleep and thinking about the sleep hygiene and what's happening in the room and, making sure that, you don't have a TV in the room because, once again, you're probably inclined to watch TV until you fall asleep, and then that will affect your ability to create melatonin and all of those things. But let's start looking at some of the actual tips to help you. So all of that will help you immensely, by the way. But, if all of that's on point and you're still having an issue, what else can you do? There's things, of course, like exercising in the day, because that will help you in terms of improving, with almost like in different ways, but it will help you with the production of, these good feel-good hormones. It can help with serotonin production. It can help, which as we know is the precursor to melatonin, and it can actually just help you with, stress relief and things like that. So I would definitely say do that earlier in the day. Definitely not, in the afternoon or the evening, because that can affect sleep quality, but, exercise during the day. Meditation has helped me immensely. I mean, there's studies, so many studies on how meditation can improve sleep quality. For me, I have a bit of a routine. Like after we've watched a bit of TV or whatever, and we always have very dim lights. That's something else I'd encourage you to have at night. I mean, we did speak about, not having lights like this and having the blue blocker glasses, but very dim lights. And then after we do that, then, when we go to bed, I actually read. So I always just have some sort of chick lit, something that's just mindless that I can just read. I try not to, read anything that's kind of intense or that requires me to start thinking, too much. So I always do that. I read a little bit of that, and then I'll meditate for as long as I need to feel that. When I start to feel my body just so calm, that's when I'll go to sleep. For me, that works. Some people prefer to meditate earlier in the day. Whatever sort of works for you, but meditation, absolutely. EFT is something else, emotional freedom technique. I did a training on it a few weeks back, but it's tapping on various meridian points in the upper body. And that has also been shown to lower cortisol, the stress hormone. So that's great if you're worrying about something, so people will often say, well, I'm stressed, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm worried about tomorrow, I'm thinking about, the kids, I'm thinking about finances. Tap on it. Just start tapping on it, really get into the energy of everything that's worrying you about it, and tap, tap, tap on these. You can look at the videos, look at the one I did the other day, and that can just help, as I said, get you out of that, amygdala is, really overacting, and just start to calm the body. Breath work, doing something like the 4-7-8 breath, which is inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. That's really good for helping to just calm the body. Or alternate nostril breathing is also fantastic for really just innervating that parasympathetic nervous system, calming the body. So all of those things are great. I touched on the weighted blanket. That can make a big difference. Your sleep hygiene, also having routine. We like having routine. We're creatures of habit. That can really help you as well. And then, of course, supplements. So, we spoke about caffeine, so make sure that your supplements don't have caffeine in them, and just try and have B vitamins, especially the B3s and things like that, earlier in the day. And no ginsengs, nothing like that. I'd always make sure you're having that earlier in the day. But at night, things like zinc can help people. Some people, respond well to vitamin D. Definitely magnesium can help. And then, of course, there's various herbs that can be quite nice. Kava could be suitable for some people. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it long term. Passion flower, oats, lavender. Like there's so many various herbs. Valerian, of course, hops, Jamaican dogwood, there's various herbs, like that, if there's pain present, which is affecting your sleep quality, turmeric, like there's various things you could be doing, as I said, depending on what's causing the high stress or causing the sleep issue, you can take herbs to sort of help with that, just helping to calm the nervous system. And then, of course, there's melatonin. That can be suitable for people, especially if there's a low melatonin issue. So let me know if that's all kind of making sense, if that's, serving you. And as I said, considerations like the hormones, like your blood sugar, they are all things that you need to be really making sure are balanced, because that will absolutely affect your sleep quality. And as I said, if there is something that is worrying you, is concerning you, then I would consider things like doing the tapping, the EFT, or maybe journaling. Sometimes they say just actually dumping everything onto a piece of paper before you go to bed. It's like it's saying to your mind, you know what? That's all there. We'll take care of it tomorrow. It's not going away. You won't forget it. It's all written there. So at least it's almost just closing that loop. And they say even just, falling asleep with gratitude can be really, really positive in terms of actually just lifting your vibration and to help you to start thinking about, things that are working for you, just to take your mind off anything that's kind of really more negative by nature, so to speak. So anyway, I will love you and leave you. I mean, there's some good information there. And as I said, I do have the books online that you can buy. I think, Amazon, Book Depository, all the usual places. This is through Balboa Press, the Louise Hay one. So, and they're not expensive. So that might be a good idea. I mean, there's 137 tips there. So I'm pretty comprehensive, and this is all the things that I tried myself and things that I've recommended to people, things that I've based on studies. There's so much information there. There's things on, even, in terms of like acupressure points that you can press, talking about Shakti mats, feng shuiing your room for optimal sleep. Like there is so much information there, and specific amino acids. And just on that, I would say, if you're not familiar with Julia Ross, the mood questionnaire or the mood cure, I would encourage you to Google it and do the questionnaire, because that can work out if you have low GABA or if you have low serotonin, because both of those things will affect your sleep quality, and both of those can be improved. As I said, tryptophan, 5-HTP, I take usually one or the other, and that helps improve my sleep because I do tend to be lower in serotonin. And of course, then if you are lower in GABA, a lot of sleep supplements also contain GABA now. So GABA is, a calming neurotransmitter. That's like, the brakes to the pedal. So that can also be quite useful. And as I said, testing if there's an issue, because then that can highlight, where there is an issue and then how best to treat it. Because if it's low estrogen, well, there's things you can do for that. If it's correct information, make the correct assessment, and then accordingly treat. And of course, if it's chronic emotional patterns, if it's blocks, if it's, things that are keeping you stressed during the day, we can also address that. So anyway, look at this information again. And as I said, just let me know if it serves you, and I will look forward to seeing you all soon.